educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
Thank you very much for tuning in today. We're going to have some fun today. This individual, she has some unique and quirky perspectives using nature as a metaphor for our lives, which allows her to help people in an unconventional way. Some things that we may not be used to, but her approach gets results. For example, you can't see the wood for the trees. The answer can almost certainly be found within the wood. Now, here's the thing. We're used to the other version of that, right? Can't see the forest for the trees, So I think there's a catch to the word wood. If y'all catch what we're trying to say.
I do.
So she have used the tools in her coaching and problem-solving toolkit for more than 20 years. And her tools are also demonstrated in her book, Can't See the Wood for the Trees, and her podcast, Landscaping Your Life With, and her name is actually in the name of the podcast. She's an experienced speaker, coach, and author who has fun, laughter, joy, and connection to every conversation. Alison, thank you very much for coming on the show today, and I am really looking forward to this episode.
Well, thank you for having me. Me too.
So, when we were back in the green room, we were talking about the demographics, and most people kind of sitting on the fence. It's funny because, some people have aluminum fences and steel fences, but some people also have wood fences, right? What would you talk to somebody or encourage someone to kind of maybe either stay on the fence, get off the fence, go around the fence, under it? Like, how would you talk to them?
You've got me. Yes. I suppose the whole premise of using metaphor is the fact we use metaphor in our language. Mm-hmm. So you said, some people are sitting on the fence, mm-hmm. and we might have somebody say, I can't see the woods or the forest for the trees, or I'm stuck in a rut. And what I realized was, if we stick with the real life situation, we can get really quite stuck and run rings around ourselves, mm-hmm. because we're there justifying and getting really annoyed and frustrated about the real life situation. So metaphor comes in because we can send that whole story, mm-hmm. on a coffee break, and then let's explore the metaphor. So whatever situation somebody listening who's sitting on a fence about, I don't need to know what the situation is. You don't need to know what the situation is. And they don't need to spend lots of time thinking about that situation. They just need to go, yeah, but I am sitting on the fence. Mm-hmm. And what I would then say is, and you brought it out in your question actually, is there's two ways to do it. You could either draw the fence. It's like, if let's park the story. But if I was to draw the fence that I'm sitting on, what would it look like? Mm-hmm. And somebody, and you say, they may say it's a wooden fence with big spikes at the top. it's very high. Mm-hmm. And so the interesting thing is that metaphorically we can draw it. Mm. And then it might be, I go, well, Drew, if you're sitting on it, where are you sitting on it? Mm-hmm. Which way are you facing? Where are you looking? Describe either side of the fence. Is one side easier to get off than the other? And so it's about making it easy to sort of come off the fence, really, in the drawing. And what happens is having resonated with sitting on the fence, mm-hmm. as soon as we start drawing it and we start coming up with all the options, so it could be, well, I'm sitting on the fence because it's difficult for me to get off the fence. Mm-hmm. Well, that's fine. I'll put some steps. And by imagining putting steps mm-hmm. in that picture, our brain goes, oh, what's those steps like in real life? Oh, I need to make it easy. I need to talk to somebody. I need to, and it sort of opens up the stuckness, if you will. Mm-hmm. The other thing, though, is, and perhaps this is where you let me do it on your behalf, is the Landscaping Your Life podcast is me going out and embodying the sayings. So if I'm treading water, I'm in the water treading it for you and sharing with you the insight of, if I put my foot down, I can stop treading water. Oh, if I float. So I might suggest, as long as it's safe to do so, somebody goes and finds a fence to sit on. You mean? So if you really do think of a situation, it's like, I'm sitting on the fence, I need to make a decision, but I'm not making the decision. Go and sit on a fence and just think about, why would I go this way versus that way? Is that it? Because sometimes it's, well, I want to go I don't want to take the easy route. I want to go the more difficult route, but that's difficult. I can't get there. So all that we bring to the sitting on a real fence, we can then go, oh, I just need to make it easier for myself, because I'm wanting that. I want that really exciting side of the fence, but there's just no stepping stones to it. It's just a bit steeper than I'd like. Okay, get a stick. Like I've got arthritic knees, and if it's steep, I have to get a stick out. So we can come up with all of these wonderful solutions that we can then apply back to life. So if anybody's sort of sitting on the fence about a situation, then absolutely dive into the metaphor, draw it, go and sit on a fence, explore the fence, explore how you'd make decisions of which side or how to get off it. Do all of that, and then you've got a lovely, rich database of solutions that you can then go, oh, what does that mean in the real life situation? And even if somebody listening hasn't done any of that yet and going, that sounds weird. Yes, it does. But everybody looks at me a bit strangely when they do it and then go. So I had somebody the other week who drew their problem as if it was a mountain. And it was as if I could looking at me down the camera going, but how did that work? What? I can draw the mountain and I feel better and I now know what to do. And it's like, yeah, I know. We're just talking to a different part of us.
So, I'm listening to you. There's a plethora of things that comes to mind, right? So, one of the things as we're sitting on the fence, even though I might feel uncomfortable, sometimes we get used to being uncomfortable in that space.
Yes. Yeah.
So we procrastinate, or we just decide not to make a decision, right? So how would you encourage someone to even jump one way or the other, or even just walk down the fence, whatever it is,
Yeah. You could draw. So if you go back to your drawing, if you did a drawing, go and put, I don't know how it translates, but spikes on the top, make it really, really uncomfortable. So it would be make it uncomfortable. So if you don't like the cold, make it cold. So it might be uncomfortable feeling. It might be temperature that's uncomfortable. It might be the fact that it's very, very titchy. So you can't actually sit still because it's so thin. So either draw the fence so it's uncomfortable, so you couldn't imagine it, or go and find an uncomfortable fence to sit on.
Wow.
Because it's you're right. You're absolutely right. It could be that the first fence somebody drew was so comfy and so gorgeous and so lovely, and they're looking at the fence and going, why would I want to come off it?
Right.
And it's that whole, absolutely, that is how life is at the moment. You're saying you want to get off the fence, but that fence that you're on is so comfy, so let's make it uncomfortable. Shorter, bigger, higher. If you don't like heights, make it a really high. Imagine, I wouldn't necessarily, if you don't like heights, don't go and find a high fence. Draw a high fence. Imagine that sitting on top of getting vertigo as you're looking down and going, no, I don't want that. And so you're right. And think the other thing, which comes back to the why might we not make a decision, is, and it's like it's comfy where it is. My brain's gone now. Where was I? What direction of travel was I going? It'll come back to me. Yeah, it's gone.
All right, no, that's no problem. That's no problem. So I think sometimes while we're sitting on this fence and we're looking at one side or the other, somebody's grass on this side is cut. The grass on the other side is high. And sometimes we don't understand that they're really at the same plane, but one could look further down than the other. So where do we get that confidence or that courage to say, hey, they're both in the same place, just one is not as pretty as the other?
I think it is come back to what we want, and I've now got that train of thought about the problem. Sometimes is we don't commit to a whole path. We commit to a half a path. It's like, we go, we perhaps have got off the fence before, but we've only taken 2 steps, and then it's I made a wrong decision, and we go back to the fence because we know the fence, it's comfortable,
right?
And for me, there's something really quite powerful about committing to a whole path. So it doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong, just commit to the first path, to the first crossroads, get there, then you can assess. So if when you look at the grass and you go, this isn't very pretty, but it feels like the right way to go, do it, go to the next crossroads, and then you can always make a decision to come back. But I'd always say, go to the end of the first path. Because otherwise we're just doing that sort of backwards and forwards, fear of missing out. I might have made the wrong decision. And quite often, once we've taken a few steps, then it becomes clear about, actually, it was just fear that was making me worry. Yeah, actually, this is where I want to be. I was right. But knowing that when we get to the crossroads, we can always turn around again.
Right. So listen to you as we're talking about this metaphor of there's this fence, right? Why do you speak, or why do you use this process of encouraging people in metaphors?
Because, I started it because I'm an awkward so-and-so.
Okay.
So, one of those friends where when you try and give me advice, I think I know best, and you're trying to get me to see it, the situation from a different perspective, and I'm going, in fact, I was like that this morning. Anyway, you see what I mean? It's that whole, no, I've thought of that, and I still not sure. Oh, no, that won't work with that person. So I will my logical brain will run rings round somebody giving me suggestions. Of course I have problems, and of course I have problems that I need to solve. And therefore, logic isn't always my best friend. So what I realized was, if you give me a metaphor, oh my God, resistance to change goes down, my ability to listen to new ideas is there. It's just so much easier to get me to see a situation from a different perspective if you use metaphor. So I sort of started it from a very selfish point of view. It works for me. And then I realized, but people are using it in their language all the time. Within the first few minutes of you and I talking, you'd given me the sitting on the fence metaphor.
Yes.
And so I'm now attuned to hearing it. So somebody might say, stuck in a rut, going round in circles, whatever the phrase is, stuck between a rock and a hard place, uphill struggle, you name it.
Right.
And so, but the thing is we're using that language quite often to say, I'm stuck. And we're using the language to go, here's the evidence that I'm stuck. I cannot see the woods / forest for the trees. I'm stuck in a rut. That is reality. I am stuck. And what I think metaphor does is sort of intervene to say, hang on a minute, you've used that metaphor. You understand that metaphor at some level, otherwise you wouldn't use it. Let's mine that for a different perspective. Because it's a bit like stopping your mid-track, going, you've used this metaphor. Let's make that metaphor bigger. Let's add some color. Let's make it, let's look at it from all angles. And then when we come back to the sort of the conversation and pick up again, we've got this metaphor that's now richer and has solutions within it that we can't help but then apply to the real life situation. So it's sort of, bypassing logic if your logic is like mine, but it's also tapping into sort of an innate part of us that we're all used to, which is what's the first thing we ever tell children is stories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and all the stories are metaphors, and invariably it's, you know, somebody does good and the person who's bad doesn't, you know, something, you know, happens to them. And so there's all these morals in the stories we tell children, and we tell the stories because that's what, you know, we can make sense of. Because, you know, tell a child, no, you can't do that.
Right.
But if you tell a story about a character and the repercussions of doing that, then we understand it and go, oh, that's why I shouldn't do that.
So as we're talking to people that are on the fence, right, or, you know, kind of stuck where they are, what kind of story or how would you motivate someone to get unstuck? Because a lot of times we have fear, a lot of times we have peer pressure, whatever it might be, however you word it, you know, how would you encourage someone to get unstuck?
I think the reason that metaphor works is because we leave the stuckness behind and all of our fear and all of the reason why we're attached to it and why we don't want to leave it. So it's as if we're not having to face the fear. We're not having to, we're able to leave the overwhelm to one side and go, I have just uttered these words. So if you're stuck, just pay attention to your language. What metaphor comes to mind? And to just explore that. Even if somebody says, I'm stuck in a rut, go and find a rut and stand in it. And stand in it. I mean, you could argue, go and stand in it for half an hour. No, you can't move. No, you can't get out of it yet. And it's that whole, oh, this rut that I'm standing in is exactly like the rut that I've got into about my job, my relationship, my life. Oh my God. And I have just wanted to get out of this rut. You know, I don't want to stand in this rut for 30 minutes. So I think it's playing around with just having a bit of fun as well in order to get us to go, oh, yeah. It's because invariably it's not real, the reason we're not taking action. You know, because there's a part of us that does want to take action.
Right.
It's just, we're listening to the story, we're believing the story. And therefore, the metaphor allows us to go, oh, yeah. You know what? I've been in this rut. It isn't 30 minutes. I've been in this rut for 10 years.
Right.
You know, and it's the absurdity bit. I mean, I think you said something about being quirky. I think sometimes laughter and absurdity are a brilliant way to get us out of ruts.
Right.
So it is having that, you know, play with drawing that fence. Have little smiley faces on each element of or have little horrible angry faces on your fence. You know, and then it could be, you know, imagine the fence being, I'm imagining balloons as the fence floating away. So I think, or it might be that you decide to blow the fence up so you can't sit. Again, this is metaphorical rather than me advocating anybody goes out and blows up a room.
Correct.
But I think it's that when we're stuck and our mindset is also stuck with us, we have to do something different. And quite often we're not going to do that within the story. So just telling ourselves, or friends quite often will go, oh, come on. And it's that, yeah, but all they're doing is continuing to convince you about the story. And it's like, but I'm attached to my story. I've put effort, days, years into my story. And I'm very attached to my story, even if it's got me onto the fence. So by using logic, I don't know that that's going to get us off. So I think it's, if you notice you're stuck and have no access to what to do, is to just notice next time, go for a walk, but notice next time when you use a metaphor, particularly in nature, and then just explore that, have some fun with it, draw it, be absurd with it. You know, because it could be, you know what, I'm not going to sit on the fence, I'm going to tunnel under the fence.
Right.
But the thing is, as soon as you start, because when we say these words, it's as if the only option is we're sitting on a fence. As soon as we start drawing pictures of going over it, under it, demolishing it, making it pretty, it might be the fact we need to have rainbow coloured fence. It might be we want a black fence because then we wouldn't want to sit on it, or a sticky fence. It's doing whatever that just enables our brain to go, oh, that's what oh God, I am being silly, aren't I? Or not silly, because it's understandable why we've got to, but it's that whole, it's enabling ourselves to laugh at, oh, I've just sat on this fence for the last 18 years and all I have to do is make a decision. And if it's the wrong decision, I can always come back to the fence. So
again, speaking metaphorically, your book is named Can't See the Wood for the Trees. So when I first saw the title, I thought of course, wood for the trees. All right. It's the opposite of the forest, because forest seems grand. Wood simplifies the idea. But then I start thinking of would being WOULD. Would I do, or whatever,
Oh, wow.
So that's the way I had interpreted it. But
nice.
how or why did you call your book Can't See the Wood for the Trees?
Okay. Here in the UK, we have a phrase called can't see the wood for the trees. Translated elsewhere in the world, it would either be can't see the woods for the trees or can't see the forest for the trees. So it is a phrase we use when we're stuck. And therefore, it is just one of the chapter headings in the book. So the book could have been called Stuck in a Rut. It could have been Up a Creek Without a Paddle. It could have been Like a Fish Out of Water. So the name of the book is simply the phrase we use. Here in the UK, then it would be can't see. Let's go with can't see the woods for the trees. So it's I can't see the bigger picture because I'm too focused on the detail. And therefore, the chapter on that encourages us to draw the wood, to go out into a wood, because, again, can't see the wood for the trees, I'm stuck, I'm overwhelmed, don't know what to do. But what would you do in a real wood forest? I mean, the only difference is, in the UK, we say we can't see the wood for the trees because a wood is quite small, and therefore you should be able to see the wood. My contention about, and I don't know that the book, if I lived in America, the book would be called Can't See the Forest for the Trees, because you can't see the forest for the trees. The forest is too big to see in one go, unless you get to a higher vantage point. So it's a bit like, if you're saying I can't see the forest for the trees, damn right you can't.
Right.
It's like, that's impossible. So let's pick something that's possible. Whereas can't see the wood for the trees, you should be able to sort of see the wood. But again, it's down to that I'm focusing too much on one tree or focusing on the wrong thing. I mean, to be fair, 75% of people, well, ish, what I've noticed is a larger majority of people who resonate with can't see the woods / forest for the trees is when I say to them, so where do you want to get to? It's always the other side of the wood. It's never the wood. It's never about the wood. It's never, I want to understand the wood. I want to see the wood. I want to spend time in the wood. I want to love the wood. No, I want to get to the other side of the wood. So the question then is, so why are you distracting yourself with the wood? And somebody, I did this, a walk with, they were actually in Florida, wandering around the wood there. I was asking them questions. Where do you want to be? The other side of the wood. So why are you in the wood? Oh, I don't know. But within 2 years, they'd 5 times their turnover, because what they realized was their pattern might have been sitting on the fence, but their pattern was getting distracted by everything else that came along. So they couldn't see the wood for the trees was this path's interesting. I might like this path instead of the one that I've chosen. Oh, what about this path? Oh. And they were just not focusing on getting to the other side of the wood. So I think, that's the beauty of it. The fact that we suddenly uncover patterns of our behavior, where that particular person just turned around and went, I just need to focus. I just need to focus on my end goal and not get distracted and not keep thinking there's something else out there that I might want to do better. It's like, that's the goal. And therefore, in 2 years, having focused on the goal, turnover times 5, much happier. Thank you. and attributes the walk in the wood as a contributing factor to that happening.
Alison, I thank you for coming on today. I appreciate you. So let me ask you this question before we go. How can someone reach out to you? Where can they find you if they're stuck in their woods, if they stuck on that fence and they need someone to help them either off one side or the other? How can they get in touch with you to get that coaching?
Okay, alisonsmith.co, nothing after the co, so just alisonsmith.co is the website. However, there's lots of Alison Smiths about, so you might end up on other people's websites. So Landscaping Your Life will find me. Mm-hmm. So Landscaping Your Life is the name of the podcast. Landscaping Your Life is the tagline to the book. So you'll find Can't See the Wood for the Trees, Landscaping Your Life to Get Back on Track. So you'd find that on Amazon. Landscaping Your Life, hashtag on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok and the like. So Landscaping Your Life with Alison will find me, I suspect, better than Alison Smith, because you'll have various others come.
That's cool. So before I let you go, of course, I ask this of all my guests. My would you rather question. Would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
Well, the interesting thing is that I use nature, so I should choose the fork in the road. But every part of my being is going, the 3 doors, the 3 doors. So, the 3 doors.
So it's just because of every part of your being is doing that? Is there something deeper into that? Is it because you have more options?
Yeah, there is the more options. Mm-hmm. It's closer. The 3 to me, I mean, and again, this is because I'm quite, I do spatially. Mm-hmm. It's like the doors are in front of me. Mm-hmm. The fork in the road is quite a bit of a trudge away. Mm. So for me, it's like, you know what, the fork in the road, and it feels a bit more arbitrary. It's like the fork in the road is I've just so happened to on this path. Therefore, the fork in the road, left or right. Doors feel much more, there's doors. And what's on the other side of those doors is a choice. And those choices are richer. So they feel, so I'm really surprised because I'd have thought, I'm going to stay in nature. Right. No, those 3 doors because they're closer and they've got, I don't know, it's a bit like, because the door had to be closed to them. They're quite exciting. They're quite big. We've had to sort of dampen them down. So it's like, because fork in the road, I can see what's coming. Whereas this is a surprise. It's like, I'm going to open the door.
Alison, I thank you very much for playing that Would You Rather game. I appreciate your insight because, again, that's something different. I like to ask this question because everybody has a different perspective.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Sure, no problem. And thank you all for listening to That Will Never Work podcast, and catch us on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?